Hey guys, I'm Jeremy, and today I thought I'd tell you the toughest thing about traveling in China. And it's not the people or animals or language or cultural barriers or dangerous roads and high mountains. It's the hotels. Yes, it is such an obnoxious challenge sometimes to get hotels in China. So I'll show you a quick clip of a trip I did right before the pandemic because most people here, like I mentioned this kind of stuff, they're like, "Oh, it's because of the pandemic. It's because of the pandemic," and it's like, no, no. Issues about getting hotels in China for foreigners have always been really tough. So on this trip, we went up to Gansu. There was 10 of us, and the first night I ended up staying kind of in a small town in Gansu, in the middle of nowhere. So this gives you a good example of how it goes down. We actually booked a hotel before I came. But then I got a message yesterday morning saying, like, because we're foreigners, we can't stay at the hotel. Actually, it said they didn't recognize the facial recognition system, something to this extent. Now when you go to a hotel, they have like a camera and they take photos of people, like see if you recognize your ID or something. So that might be part of it, but the main thing was my account, is linked to my name, which is a foreigner, and in this town there's 25 hotels, but there's only one hotel you could stay at. We had gone to that hotel just to ask them, and they sent us to, of course, the nice, expensive hotel in the middle of town that's like 240 renminbi or something, about $40. So we just shared rooms and stuff. Not really a big deal, but then the cops came to get our passport, to check the info. First we gave it to them, the copy, then we came down, and then the cops wanted to look at it again. And they got pictures with us and checked out all the entry stamps and different things. And then when we came back from dinner, we had a barbecue last night, which was decent. And then we came back and they needed to look at it again and take all these things. So it took like, an hour or something for, 3 different times they came to check it out. So it's too bad too, because, like I'd want to come back to this town and stuff. Like it's not bad, but it's like, I don't want to go through this hassle of like, the cops coming and check out the passport for, an hour and a half, come back and show it again. And they're like, oh, we forgot to get they wanted like the entry stamps or the exit stamps, and they were looking at the expired ones. It's just, I get it. They're bored. The last tourist that came to this town was probably me 5 years ago. So I get why they're bored and stuff, but it's kind of a bummer because it's just, it kind of takes away from the experience. You just want to get a hotel at the end of a long day and end it. This whole, foreigners can only stay at this one specific spot. It's always the expensive hotel. It's a little obnoxious. Of course, as soon as I walk downstairs, there's 8 cops to check our passports again. So they're down there. I don't want to put the camera in their face, but yeah, it's pretty funny. 4th time, the charm. I guess it's what bored people do when they have a day off. And it's like, do you want a field trip or sit in the office? So, pretty funny. Like making phone calls. And it's like we're the biggest spy network or something coming here. It's so silly. So as you can see, it's like such a hassle, right? Now, of course, it's not always like that, right? Like this is like in a small town in the middle of nowhere who, like I was joking, they probably hadn't had a foreigner since I was there 5 years before. But this could be a challenge anywhere, and not just in the middle of nowhere. Like even a couple years ago, or it was before the pandemic, so probably maybe 3 years ago, I was down in like Guangzhou, which is a huge city. And I went to the 7 Days Inn, and that wasn't an authorized place to accept foreigners. So I had to leave and get another hotel, and then I got to try to cancel it and all this kind of stuff. So how it's always been in China is that only certain hotels can take foreigners, okay? So this is basically like, I think what they wanted is basically like some standards so like people didn't stay in a really shitty place. So maybe like the intention is good, but it ends up being obnoxious because, what if this town doesn't have, like maybe they want something like a 3 or a 4 star, probably like a 4-star hotel they want, right? And most little villages might not have that. Or they might have someone who knows some basic English or like whatever requirements, And so you end up getting to a lot of places and, these people didn't fill out the paperwork to get this permission. And so they're not allowed to. So now this wasn't really a big deal over the years because like you could go to like many mom and pop places. Like for instance, maybe it's just a restaurant on the first floor and they've got like 5 or 6 rooms upstairs, and you'd ask them and you could see. But I noticed around 2018, 2019, they started using all the facial recognition stuff, like I mentioned in the video. And I was like, oh shit. Because I was out, I did a motorcycle trip around the time of that, before that trip. And I tried to get a hotel. I was like, oh, it's no big deal. And at first they're like, it's okay. And then they call and they're like, no. And then I had to go to the police station. And they eventually let me stay, I think somewhere else, but it was like a big deal. And I was like, God damn it, like it's not getting easier to get a hotel, and then of course the pandemic hit. And I'll make another video just about like life in China since the pandemic. And obviously it's been much worse, right? Because you went from you only could get 1 out of 30 hotels in town, and then because of the pandemic, maybe they can't either. So it just gets even more difficult, right? And so when I first came to China in 2006, like I mentioned, like when I was in Yunnan and stuff, it's a little bit more laid back. I don't think that was really a big issue. You pretty much got it wherever. Some of these cities would probably be like, you can only stay here. So Yunnan wasn't too bad. And I think Sichuan itself was probably kind of laid back. Now, Tibet has always a special region. You definitely can't get hotels anywhere. And same thing with Qinghai and Xinjiang quite a bit. Okay, so almost all of West China is quite difficult. You need to have a guide to go out there too, just so you know that. You cannot travel there on your own to Tibet, all of Tibet. Now, Qinghai, you could get around quite a bit. And Xinjiang, I'm not sure these days. I remember one time I slept in like a gas station, like a parking lot, and it was actually a Xinjiang guy. He didn't look much different than me, let's say. And he called the police, and the police came, and I had to leave or go to the city. And so this is really tough because I've been out in Shanghai too, and the guy's like, "Oh, you can stay in the room," and then at the middle of the night, they're knocking out the door. You got to leave. You can't stay here, and so it's never really easy to know if you could get a hotel. And later on, they could tell you you can't, and you've already booked, and you've already taken a shower, and you're in the room. So this has been a big issue for years and years, and that was a huge disappointment. That a couple of years ago, all these mom and pop places, the government's trying to regulate them, and I understand maybe they want to get tax money or whatever. To me, it's about all control, but. They don't have the facial recognition for us. And they don't have the permit to be able to do it. Or maybe some people can do it, but they have to input so much information, and they've never seen a passport before, so they don't know like the entry stamp or the exit stamp, and they can't read the English, so they're not able to easily accept us. So maybe the regulations is like you could take them, but they have all of this extra stuff to fill out. This also leads to a huge problem because, as you can imagine, some people don't mind taking me, or like my group, but it's very time consuming. And some people are really busy. They don't want extra work. Like last summer, we found this really cool Tibetan style place in northern Sichuan near Roar Gai. And they had some music and a beautiful area and yurts to stay in. And it was perfect for a tour group, and they were super friendly to us. They got photos. They're like, come again, come again. And as soon as I booked it again, like on trip.com, it was denied. And I luckily had the woman's WeChat, and I sent a message to her, and she didn't even reply. And I was like, yeah, I understand, because when we got there, I mean, they have dozens of other Chinese. They could get in and out of those hotel rooms quick, right? They come in, they showed the ID card, bam, they're in. Bam, they're in. So they could do 20 Chinese in, a couple minutes. Whereas I get there, then they have to find someone who knows English. They come over, and actually it was a guest. It's not even someone who works there. And then one person takes, 20 minutes each. And shit, that's an hour and a half just to get, 6, 7 guests. Okay. And I'm not even joking. I mean, it really takes 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the person. If there's someone who's bilingual, like knows Chinese and English and can read, whether a foreigner or Chinese, they can make this process a little faster. But it's a big hassle. And the annoying part is that if you go to I've been to the police station where they get all this info, and you can see when I put in my, passport number, not surprisingly, like they could see where I live. They know when I enter China. They have all of this information anyway. So why they have to have the hotel input all of this information again is just a big, annoying regulation to waste their time and really make it more difficult for us. I don't know if it has, well-intended things like they want us to be in nicer hotels or whatever, but I just want to get a hotel and get it easily. And this has been a really obnoxious thing about China, because I do tours here. I mean, probably one of the top reasons I'm leaving, right? I mean, I don't want to spend hours looking for a hotel or something like that. I don't want the police to show up. I don't want to go to a police station. I don't want them to come back and forth 4 or 5 times. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're a Chinese person, you come to like New York or Denver, Colorado, or Los Angeles, and it's like you're looking around for a hotel and then you have to register with the police and go back. I mean, this is a very, very basic, to me, what would be like a human right. You know, I'm not talking about like you have to have democracy and free healthcare or anything. Man, you should be able to get a hotel anywhere, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just too liberal or something, but you know, if I want to stay in a 1-star hotel somewhere, you know, and there's rats and cockroaches, whatever, you know, that should be my decision. I shouldn't have to like come in on my bicycle into a town. I bike 60 Ks. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. And they're like, you can't stay here. You can't stay here. You can't stay here. So then you go up to, you know, the one that's authorized. And generally speaking, it costs more money and it's nicer. So, I mean, it sucks to spend more money if you're on a budget, but not always is it even nice. So sometimes I've had it where, you know, I just get this hotel. I'm like, this place sucks. It's just everyone's smoking cigarettes. It's dirty. The room stinks. And you made me stay here. And it's like, what is it? Just because they have like a connection with the government to allow foreigners. And so I don't like that thing. I like to have some choice over something like that. So now, I mean, there is some good news. Like, you know, like I mentioned, Trip.com and a couple other websites do say if they're allowed to take foreigners. Okay. And so that was right before the pandemic. That made it a lot easier, you know, because they already eliminated all the people who couldn't. And you still were limited in your options of where you could stay in many places. But at least they did that work for you. So now that the pandemic's hit, all of their list is actually much smaller, right? So I just basically book a place, and then they either call me or send me an email, and they're like, "You can't stay." So I'll usually just tell them, "You find a place then," because I'm not going to just keep booking or calling 100 hotels and, you know, like an Easter egg hunt, being like, "God, where can I stay?" You know. And so I usually just have them do it and find out, and that's really the best way. So at least when the pandemic's done and, you know, things are back to normal, it shouldn't be quite as bad. And if you're going to really touristy places or regular cities, it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I wouldn't really stress it. But if you're like me and you get off the beaten track and you're in the middle of nowhere and, you know, on a bike or a motorcycle or your own car and you just want to get a hotel anywhere, it's not going to be as easy as it used to be, because now everything's regulated. So this mom and pop thing in the middle of nowhere, it's rare. I've done it a couple times. I only know of like a couple places that might take people, but they get big fines if they get caught taking people if they're not allowed to. I know when I was in Tibet, I got a ticket for a few hundred renminbi for staying in a hotel that's not authorized, and I don't know what that hotel paid, but I think it was big because, and I know because I went to a lot of hotels the few weeks I traveled in Tibet, and you know nowhere would take us. Basically, it was real hard to get accepted. You know, so this thing in the last couple of years, I'll make a separate video on the pandemic, but of course it's been super obnoxious. You know, not just a COVID test, but you know, we got to register much more at like the police station for different things. So I've been up at the top of the mountain about to go into the park, and they're like, you got to go down the mountain to register at the police station. And like I said, they have all of our info, so it's really annoying. And then so this is, yeah, been a real big headache. And yeah, one of the things I was hoping is that this kind of thing would be easier. And now with the pandemic, it's just, it's so tough for me. I'm trying to book a hotel in 2 weeks in the Tibetan area. And the Tibetan area closes all the time. If there's even a few cases in Chengdu, any Tibetan region, Sichuan, closed entirely, you know. I've been out there where they said, you know, we were out there for 2 days. My buddy Evan brought all of his stuff from Chengdu. He was going to rent a place for a month with his wife, and they brought their cat, and they got a cabin in Kanding, and there was a case somewhere a few hundred kilometers away or something like that. And so the police came the second day we were there and said, you know, don't go into town, stay here, or if you go somewhere, let us know where you're going and everything that's going on. And then the next day they came and they were like, you got to go. Like, this is just too much. You're sitting up in the mountain, you're doing nothing, but you got to get out of town. There's COVID somewhere in Sichuan, and you got to like drive back to Chengdu, a police escort right out. So, so there's a real headache. And yeah, this thing about going to the police station all the time gets old, you know. The police are really friendly and everything. It's not that they're going to be rude or anything, but yeah, all the time when I get to places that that they're not used to any foreign people, you'll probably have to go to, or a good chance you might have to go to the police station. Hopefully when this pandemic's over, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, you're not going to be able to just show up and get whatever you want. Make sure you look ahead of time and book it online. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you, and this can help you navigate getting through China a little better, at least for the hotel part. The other things aren't too bad, you know. The getting the trains and traveling around and stuff isn't too bad. It's just this hotel thing that really bugs me. But anyway, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.